the mind, fantasy football and city skylines. This is Staying In.
Dan, what is this? Is this fantasy.premierleague.com thing? Is this the fantasy league that we did last year? Like, is it the exact same thing?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
Was it only last year? I thought it was ages ago.
No, I think they only do one season of football. Do they do more than one season of football a year?
No. But it felt long ago that we were having this conversation.
It does.
Yeah, it was only last season that we played this. I mean, me and Sam have kind of played this and variations of fantasy football for a number of years. We're obviously very big football fans. Last year we tried to hook you both into it,
and I was on board.
Pete, you were on board. Chris, you declined on that occasion.
Well, unlike Peter, I felt my ignorance of football knowledge would be a hindrance.
No, I thought it would be a boon to me.
Right.
Yeah, Pete just picked funny named players.
You're very much like that octopus that tried to predict the World Cup results.
No, I'm more like, you know when artists say, was it Picasso who said, have the creativity of a child?
I don't know, it sounds something Picasso.
Sounds like something that sort of lunatic would say. Like, basically, that thing...
Isn't that like... Well, you can't libel the dead. Okay, carry on.
Well, never mind. So, that thing where artists say, like, free your creativity by thinking, like, you know, by not constraining yourselves to what comes beforehand. That's what I thought about with fantasy football. I thought that maybe that would be a good way in. I think it's gonna be useful for my time this time round as well, because I've joined the football league, because we're gonna run a football league, but we're gonna run it with everybody, aren't we? As in everybody who's listening to this.
Yeah. So last year, all we did was we kind of ran a little mini league between ourselves, just for fun, just for funsies. And we thought what we would do this year is we'd do the same thing, but we'd open it out and kind of let the people at home, you can come and join us and join the league and compete with us, compete against us, show us how terrible we're doing, laugh at Pete's team, and look at the reasons why he's picked the players he has, which I'm sure will likely be based on names he finds funny, which will give you just a little insight into the mind of our dear Mr. Peter Willington.
Think like a child.
Think like a child, act like Peter Willington.
All right, okay.
They don't call him the Picasso of football management for nothing.
So, do you want me to explain what people need to do or what you need to do?
Yeah, give me a very brief rundown of what I've got to do.
Okay, so there are a number of kind of fancy football systems out there. The most popular one, the most kind of commonly used one, is on the premierleague.com website. So you go to fantasy.premierleague.com. You can sign up for an account there. It's all free, no charge or anything like that. Sign up for an account, create your team. So you'll need to create your team before you can join any league. And then once you've done that, you can join our league. And in order to do that, you can either click on a link, which you will find on our Twitter profile, or you'll also find the code for our league there, which again, you can just pop that into the Fantasy Football Fantasy Premier League website, and that will automatically add you to our league, so you'll be able to see us. I don't think it unlocks the teams in terms of seeing what other people have done until the first game, so you won't be able to see each other's teams until then, but you should be able to see us all on there, so we'll be able to compete. And we might do things throughout the season of kind of highlighting if players are any good and who's the best, who's the worst, and how's Pete doing.
And it's important to note that there is a deadline. So they've got 6 days, haven't they, Dan, from listening to this, to kind of have their team locked?
Yes, indeed. So, yes, it'll be the 6th of August, because that's when the Premier League season kicks off, and that's the cut-off point. You can join after that. However, the points you obtain will only start from when you join, so you'll miss out on possible points that us early birds have got in there nice and early, and we'll be getting all of that jazz.
I'm getting that in my diary. 6th of August. I had no idea
that's a big diary, Pete.
It says here holiday Scotland and Republic of Ireland. Doesn't say anything about the British Premier Football League.
Well, you need to get a better diary.
Yeah, I need to get a better diary.
Or just write in Premier League starts.
In 1926, Gertrude Ederle became the first woman to swim the English Channel. 6th of August.
So I'm going to a christening on Sunday.
A christening?
A christening.
It's not Toby's, is it? Is this going to be a weird, awkward experience?
No, I've never been to a christening before, and I bought a card for the baby, and my partner is not sure whether it's an appropriate card or not. So I thought I would run it past you.
I mean, to be fair, could I just say, if it says kind of happy christening or whatever, I think you're safe.
Yeah, it doesn't. I went past those because I thought that's a bit too obvious, Stan.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how you can get a dodgy christening card.
Well,
Surely it's just...
whoa. No, I didn't say dodgy. Hang on, I'll go and get it. Should I go and get it?
Yeah, you go and get the card.
He's got one of those. He's clearly got one of those like pop-up nudie ones that you might find on. Like,
it has to have a baby on it. If it doesn't say christening, it has to have a baby on it. If it doesn't have a baby, then it can't be a christening card.
Right. All it is it's quite a small little card because it's a baby, and so I mean, not that I think they're going to actually. They're only like 7 or 8 months old, so they're probably not going to be opening the card themselves. So it's a nice blue card. I've left it blank inside because it means I can personalise the message even more.
That's nice, yeah.
Yeah, and it just says on it, 3 words. You did it. Exclamation mark.
Is it christening specific?
No.
Are you confusing a christening card with a birth card?
No. I think Kris is confusing a christening with a driving test. That's what Kris has gotten absolutely wrong here.
Okay. Let me just phrase that. So the card says you did it. Okay.
Yeah. Exclamation mark. Exclamation mark, Dan.
Okay. The exclamation mark.
Yeah, because without it sounds like I'm accusing them.
You did it. In your mind, Kris. In your mind, who is the you in you did it?
The baby.
They're not doing anything.
Well, the baby has laid there and had water poured over their head.
The christening is happening to the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. They haven't contributed anything to this occasion other than someone's carried them there.
So what you've really bought is a card that says
you bought a card for the priest.
You organised, either for the person at the top of the religious, like whatever it is, or you've bought it for the parents, and you've basically said you've organised an event.
Why?
So either it's gone to the priest, and you're sitting there thinking, well, no one ever thanks him, so I'm going to get a card for him. Or
You bought a card where it's like, oh, it's always about the child, isn't it? No, you know what? It's his special day as well.
So hang on. So the christening card, right? It's not for the baby. It's for the parents.
Yeah, even worse, because it's kind of like you did it. Well, you've done it now.
Well, I guess it's going to be a child of the Lord now.
You've done it. You did it.
But it's for the baby. No, when you write the card, it's for the baby, isn't it?
Chris. Okay, I don't want to ruin your perception of the world here, but the baby doesn't give a shit. Like,
of course it doesn't. It's not going to care about the book I've bought it either.
As we kind of mentioned, if you can also give the exact same card to someone who has passed their exams, taken their driving test, gotten married, it's not suitable for a christening.
No.
Oh man, I literally threw the receipt away today.
No, just you can. It's a very standard card, so you can use that for another occasion. No, because it's not a christening card. You don't have to take it back. You can use it for a future event.
Yeah, use it for something else,
like a funeral.
No, like
an exam or something. Has anyone got an exam coming up?
But
Sam's getting married. Here, give it to Sam and Lisa.
Yeah, that's a good wedding card. You did it. You got married.
But he knows what it looks like now.
Yeah, perfect for a wedding.
You made an active choice to do a thing. But or keep it just for what surprise a colleague. Like, just be like, when they do something really nice or something that they've tried really hard of, you just go, here's this card for you, and they'll go, that is really thoughtful of Kris. That is really thoughtful of him. And it'll be lovely. It'll be a lovely special occasion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fully behind. I'm fully with Pete. It doesn't have to be something official and that. It can be just a really nice thing of what, people don't give cards enough. So I'm going to give you a card because you have accomplished something. Here, you did it! Exclamation mark.
Yeah, your partner makes you tea. Here's a card. You did it.
You did it. You did it.
Hang on. No, brilliant. You should really save it for if we climb Scarfell Pike in a few weeks. And at the top, you can give it to one of us. Whoever you think's worthy enough of...
No. Oh, no. You know what we should actually do? We should take that card, we should sign it from all of us, and we should give it to somebody else who's just getting to the top of the peak.
Who looks really tired.
Tired. And just go up to them and just hand it to them, walk away, and just see what happens. Wouldn't that be lovely?
I'd love that. Kris, make it happen. Make it so.
Okay.
Make it so.
That means I've got to go and buy another card now.
Kris,
Sam.
what is it when... you might know this because it's in your... I want you to put on your... I assume you've always got it to handy. Your doctor's cat. Cat?
Yeah, she's around here.
Your doctor's cat.
Is that what you get? Is that what you get when you get a PhD? Here's a cat.
I've just fed her. She's around here somewhere.
I want you to put on your doctor's cap.
Yeah.
The lovely cap. Do you have that somewhere? Do you keep it?
I was wearing it last week. I had 3 days of graduations to go to, so yeah, I had my floppy Renaissance-esque hat, which I wear for those
What did you get
events.
for your masters?
Just a normal kind of mortarboard.
So, where do you keep them all?
I don't. Basically, the university hires them out for me every year for graduation.
For all the money you must have given a university to do your studies, the least they can give you is a hat.
Well, to be fair, we had to hire our robes.
But Dan, we did a degree in drama, so I'm just like,
yeah. To be fair, we just messed about for 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what Kris has done deserves a hat more than us pretending to like literally run around a Scottish wilderness for a few weeks.
Those are some very good points.
So Kris, I want you to put on your imaginary doctor's hat.
Yeah.
Bloody Cameron's Britain. And is there an official name for what happens in a theatre when everyone goes silent all at the same time? I mean, I didn't ask for a demonstration.
Is that like
Politeness?
is it a suspended silence or something?
But it's incredible. I've been thinking about it a lot recently because of a game that I've been playing called The Mind, and it might be one of my favourite things.
A pregnant pause.
A pregnant pause, but it's something different than a pregnant pause though, because nothing seems to trigger it. It's like when you're watching something in the theatre, it's just like, it's not like a cinema where the lights go dim and the adverts are on, and everyone that's their sort of cue to shut up, and the multiple adverts saying, "Please, can you shut up now? Come on, please." Like it's just that thing that happens when nothing seems to trigger it, but everyone just this like a ripple of silence goes throughout the whole theatre. I absolutely love it. I think it's one of those like wonderful pieces of social phenomena. Like
it's a felt silence, isn't it? It almost has a substance to it. Yeah.
So I've been playing The Mind, and Kris, you've played The Mind as well. It's nominated for this year's Spieles. I didn't win. That went to Azul, which I haven't played. But essentially, The Mind is a card game that captures that lightning in a bottle, that captures that feeling of social cohesion, like the like almost like a hidden message hidden amongst the people that you're with. It's a very simple game to describe. In fact, it sounds a little bit... it sounds awful when you try to describe it. To go off on a bit of a tangent at work at the moment, I'm trying to start a little board game club between me and my colleagues. And it's been really difficult, like the first 2 times I've tried to organise it, because it's really difficult to explain, A, that board games are not just Monopoly and Scrabble, and B, when I try and describe a board game, as I will do now, they don't sound great. So The Mind is a deck of 100 cards, and basically the simple idea of the game is between you and the people that you're playing with, you've got to lay those cards down in sequential order in complete silence. So depending on the number of people that you play with, you have a certain number of levels you go through. On the first level, everyone has 1 card. On the second level, everyone has 2, and so on and so on. If you're playing with 4 people, you've got to make your way through 8 levels. So that is the mind. You've got cards in front of you, and without saying a word, you've got to put those cards down onto the table, face up, in sequential order. Get it wrong, you lose a life. Lose all your lives, you lose the game. And that's it.
So what's on the cards?
Just a number.
So
you got 100 cards numbered 1 to 100.
So if someone puts down 1, then someone else puts down 2.
No, but somebody might not have 2, Dan, because you have 100 cards and you deal 1 each. You know, one person may have 1.
Someone could have 56.
Yeah.
So say we're playing now and I shuffle them out. Like Kris could have 56, you could have 32, Pete could have 7, and I could have 98. And between us, in silence, we've got to figure out and put them out in the right order. Make it through that level, then we've got 2 cards in our hands. And it sounds like the most basic and simplest game, but when you play it, you realise why it was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres. And when you play it, it's like that lightning in a bottle of like feeling like you're part of something, and you managed to create something. Like the manual plays on this kind of trying to develop a mind state with the people that you're playing with, trying to develop like an aura. The art on the cards is of a white rabbit with like a hippie symbol on him, like on a medallion. Like it kind of tries to play off those like 70s, 60s hippie aesthetic of like all being of one hive mind. But when you slap down a card and someone slap down 36 and you slap down 37, it's just like that feeling of, yes, we are Legion, we are hive mind. Like it's absolutely, when we played this game, I've not screamed and shouted in celebration, screamed and shouted in anguish so often than I have in any other game that I've played.
But that's the thing. It's all of its subtext. Like the game happens entirely in your head. So
what? How are you
communicating?
Yeah. How in terms of when you play it, what were you able to do?
Because you're not allowed to have any kind of like elaborate or explicit form of communication. Just because we're keeping quiet, we can't have some kind of elaborate sign language. It's something you feel. So it might be like, for example, just feeling there's a pause in the room would suggest that there are people around the table that perhaps have got cards that are quite close together, but they're trying to just feel the room. And it's about, you have to try and second guess each other. So I may put a card face down and I may slowly move it towards a pile. I'm looking in the eyes of everyone else to see if they're happy with me doing that. And they're thinking, okay, his confidence suggests that he's in the same 10 cards as me, but he's in the lower end. So actually, maybe I'll let Kris do that. And we had one sequence where Lisa, Veronica, and me, we played 3 cards, one after the other in sequence. And they were literally, 51, 52, and 53. And it was just an incredible moment when that happened.
It is one of those games where it's just a machine that creates those moments. Constantly. It's wonderful. And I think the other great thing about it is you do develop a little bit of a sign language when you're playing it. Like if someone starts and immediately puts their cards down and sort of sits away from the table, then you know they're not going to be involved for quite a few for a while. Like you can get the sort of feeling from them that their numbers are quite high. And then if someone's like leaning forward, then you know that they're like getting ready to sort of pounce on a number when it comes up. So it's got all these little delicate systems in it that just do enough to, like, as a group, just prod you along and achieve this kind of feeling like you are becoming like one mind. And if you ever make it to the end, the hard mode essentially is you have to do all that, but with the cards face down.
How many players does this can you play with this?
Up to 4, but I don't know why it couldn't go up to maybe 5 or 6 at a stretch. I think when you add more players, you run the risk of there's something nice and intimate about it being like 4 or 5 players, maybe pushing it at max just around the table, because first of all you have to sit in silence, which what the first sign that I knew this game was really good was when we just could not sit in silence. Like, we were so on edge and tense and excited and pumped up about what was going on and the drama that was happening. Like, we just had to get it out. There was just like, you'd just be sitting there and just be like, and it's like there was all this like overspill of everything that was building up and getting out. And I think you'd lose that in a larger group. I think there'd be a lot more temptation to speak and sort of break that. And also, you've got to be comfortable with the people that you're playing with. Like, you've got to be able to look people in the eye and be brave enough to have those communications. So I think when you start to make the group a bit bigger, you run the risk of probably people feeling a lot more uncomfortable, bigger spaces between people. Like, just having it nice and tightly around a table feels like the perfect space for this game.
I mean, because I have to say, of all of us, I probably play the least board games. That's partly due to kind of not having kind of people around who I'll play board games regularly with. And so often you guys will, on the podcast, you'll mention board games and you'll describe them. And I'll nod along and say, yeah, I have no intention. I have no intention of going on to play them. I might play them kind of when I meet with you guys, but kind of on a day-to-day basis, I'm entirely going to play them.
You kind of grin and bear it when you come and visit me, Kris and Pete.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, are you having fun, Dan?
Yeah. But I have to say, during this conversation, I have gone onto Amazon to look at to kind of have a look at it, because it does sound really interesting, and it sounds like a game that would work really well for kind of those very few occasions when I do kind of have friends around, or I go into friends and we play some games, because it strikes me as something that's really small, really easy to understand.
It's tiny.
It helps that it's quiet with a baby. That's a selling point. But yeah, I think that this seems like definitely something, especially I think 6 is probably between 4 and 6 is usually the kind of the groups number I'd be playing with. So I think it probably sits within that. But yeah, I think this could definitely be something I could go ahead and purchase. Actually, I was looking on Twitter the other day and I saw something which, I won't lie, disturbed me to my very core.
There's a lot of that on Twitter.
This was actually a post from one of us. And I think you know who you are. Mr. Peter Willington. Well, you gave a post. You posted a video of yourself having a snack of some kind.
Yeah.
Now, I understand the logic of the snack, but the execution was horrific.
I mean, Pete is famously a health freak at the moment, Dan.
Yeah,
so I can't understand why there's any concern.
We've had conversations in the past about the kind of what he eats and kind of having vegetarian or vegan, having some lovely dishes and kind of a wide variety of tasty food.
Yeah.
And yet on this occasion, he decided that the food he would eat would be a plate full of, I'm guessing, around about 10.
Yeah, there's 12 in a pack. Yeah.
Small kind of Aunt Bess's Yorkshire puddings, which is fine. Everyone loves a Yorkshire pudding. Me personally, I love a Yorkshire pudding. Can't be.
Yeah. Delicious.
Yorkshire pudding, roast dinner, bit of gravy, absolutely beautiful. What I don't find beautiful is taking that roast dinner, removing everything but the Yorkshire puddings, and replacing the gravy with toffee sauce.
Oh!
Because that's what Pete had. That's the dish. That's the snack. That's the meal that you chose to submit your body to.
I would definitely say it's a snack rather than a meal. I wouldn't classify that as I wouldn't get home and then go, what am I having for dinner?
Well, I think if you had 3-4 Yorkshire puddings, I would absolutely say, that's full-on snack territory.
Sure.
But you had a plate full of Yorkshire puddings, which, just based on the quantity, takes it into the realms of a meal.
There isn't actually much to a Yorkshire pudding, though, if you think about it. Like, they go down real easy.
I think you're focusing on the wrong part of this in terms of the size of the
particularly if lubricated with toffee sauce.
Yeah.
See, I was of the similar opinion of Dan, and disgusted, horrified, shocked,
sure,
slightly amused, as I always am, but
I don't want to hear the pancake reason. I do not want to hear the pancake excuse.
It's not that at all. Okay. So, one of my favourite things is to show my other half videos that Pete sends me, because she, like I, have often been bemused, delighted, horrified, shocked by Pete's food options.
It's my brand.
And I thought, this is money in the bank that I've got here. This is a slam dunker, horrified. We're gonna remember laughing at this.
Yeah.
Years down the line. Showed it to Lisa. All right, okay. What? Yeah? What's wrong with that? What? Sorry, hang on. You still got the ring on the finger there, Lisa. Yeah, my dad used to have strawberry jam and Yorkshire pudding. Apparently it's a thing. And,
Beautiful.
hey, I get it. Tiny baked pancakes with a little bit of sweet on it.
Yep.
Go for it.
So have tiny pancakes, not Yorkshire puddings. Have little crepes if you want.
They're
something.
the same thing. And they come in a packet frozen, which I'm sure for Pete was the height of convenience.
And they're also cupped, so they store the liquid more readily. Now, I don't know if you've heard of it, but there's a very good series on Netflix, because you're right, I am a bit of a foodie. It's called Chef's Table, and it's very good. And it follows it's 6 episodes a series, and it follows very high end, usually double Michelin star rated chefs, and it talks about their history and their struggles and how they think about food, and it's always really, really fascinating. And I realised that what I'm doing is avant-garde food, like avant-garde snacking. Like, think about it. I'm taking my history and heritage, Yorkshire puddings, and I'm mixing it.
You're from North Tunbridge Wells.
Britishness. I'm mixing it with toffee sauce, a very much a modern sweet thing. So a bit of savoury, bit of sweet. What am I saying about the food? What am I saying about my snacking? Well,
toffee sauce is not a modern thing.
Pete, you don't have to talk some nonsense sometimes.
No, but it is avant-garde snacking, and I will. This is the hill that I will die on. This toffee-covered hill.
Finally, we've figured out what it is that's going to be the end of him.
Avant-garde snacking would be making a solid cup out of toffee, and then putting inside that cup raw Yorkshire pudding / pancake batter and eating that. Yeah. That'd be avant-garde.
That'd be icky.
Yeah, because Sam's right. Putting my doctor's hat on for just a second. Technically, Pete, it's postmodern because you're kind of recycling already existing items, and you're kind of combining them to create originality.
Oh right, okay. Well, think like a baby. Like, you got to free your mind when it comes to my kind of postmodern. Do you say postmodern snacking? Yeah, postmodern snacking. There you go. Talking about the decline of Western civilization, we've been playing Civilization 5, and it's been going well. I know we've talked about Civ a whole bunch of times on the podcast, but I've managed to...
Well, no, you have.
Yeah, I suppose I have, yeah. But you're all playing it now. I guess...
We finally succumbed to your incessant badgering.
He wore us down.
And how have you found Civilization 5, specifically 5?
I've played really 2 kind of main sessions. I played a little bit by myself when I first got it. I didn't really understand what I was doing, and I kept attacking people without knowing why, and they kept attacking me without knowing why. And it wasn't the most successful civilization ever. But then we had a game which was myself, you Pete, you Kris, and then Pete. The lovely Alex also joined us. Mm-hmm. And we played that, and we played it as a cooperative kind of game, and that was really fun, and that enabled me because you kind of walked me through it as we were playing it, so I understood actually what I was doing rather than trying to just learn it on the hoof. And it was a really, really enjoyable experience. And since we've played recently, kind of all just the 4 of us together, and again on that occasion, kind of the map layout has kind of affected our ability to do anything, but it's still been a fun experience sharing that world, whether it's Sam coming up with interesting city names or Kris just wandering about in a boat. There are the kind of, I like games like this which allow you to create your own narrative, which it's a very good game of doing that. And I found it a little bit kind of intimidating to begin with, but I think certainly playing it through with you, who've played a lot of it, very much reduced the element of kind of being intimidated and enabled me to kind of just dip my toe and then be comfortable in taking those first few steps into the ocean, so to speak.
Well, that's really good to hear. I in teaching guys how it all works and stuff, I definitely realised, I think, one of my biggest criticisms of that game, which is that it isn't very beginner friendly at all.
Too many prawns.
Far too many prawns all over the place. But it isn't like there is a tutorial of sorts, but it's not adequate. I mean, it's the same, I think, in Civ 6 as well. It just never quite gets across everything you need to do, and also, more importantly, never quite explains why any of it's important. Like, it's all very well and well and good to be said, okay, found your city here, but it never. There's very few times when the game says, well, you might want to wander around with your settler just for a little bit, just to make sure that you're settling in exactly the right place, because your civilization is going to, and how it grows is going to be based on, to some extent, on the resources that you're actually near in your founding city.
I think what would work well for it, and this is something that they do in Football Manager, which I've played quite a lot. It's a similar kind of strategy, long-term strategy game, obviously in a very different environment.
Yeah.
And they don't do it
in a spreadsheet.
They don't do. Let's not get into this again. They don't do it perfectly, but if you turn on kind of, if you're a beginner, you can turn on certain settings where lots of the screen have little kind of help points that you can click on that tells you, okay, this is what this bit does, this is what this bit does, and that will, as you go through the kind of the early stages of the game, where fairly early on you pretty much hit everything you're going to, all the points that you're going to have to look at, and it comes up with those help points, and you can dial down or dial that up depending on your experience with the game. So especially when they introduce new features, they'll often say, I'm an experienced player, but please show me the stuff that's new. And I think something like that would work really well with Civ, because there's a lot of it which just says choose production, doesn't really tell you what that is.
Yeah.
Other than here's a list of productions that you could choose one of them.
It's interesting because playing Civ just starting out reminds me of what it was like playing City Skylines first time. When you play that game, the tutorial is scant and doesn't really explain, to my mind anyway, enough of what I needed to know when I first was like making my own. Was like making my city, to the extent where I had to go out of my way to, look online and go to forums of why my electricity wasn't going and why my water was contaminated and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like Civ is in the same sort of wheelhouse in that regard, that I think they expect the players to do a lot of trial and error. And
because that's quite a technical game.
Yeah, it's the same with City Skylines. You have to go into it knowing that the first civilization or the first city you create is not going to be the best, and reach the pinnacles of knowledge and power or design in the case of City Skylines. And I think that this goes on to quite a lot of the games that I've been playing actually recently. I've been playing Bloodborne and Hollow Knight on the Switch, which is exemplary. I love it. And both those are games which play against the expectations of what it is to be a modern gamer, what it is to be engaged in this medium at this time. When you play something like Uncharted or Gears of War or Horizon or something like that, it's essentially part of it is a power fantasy. Your hand is held to a certain extent, and you're given a very written and rote experience. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. I'm just saying it's kind of like what a lot of us experience in terms of games. Like you go on this wonderful journey of power, and you're always getting better and better and better until you reach the pinnacle of what it is to be great, and that's it, the game's over. And when you step into something like Civ or Bloodborne or City Skylines or Hollow Knight, and suddenly, like, take the case of Civ for example, you're just like, well, hang on, this isn't my civilization's not going anywhere, this is rubbish. Like, that's completely goes against all the other experiences that you have in, especially like AAA gaming, where it's always like pumping you full of rewards and achievements and pushing you forwards. And I think that you, as a player, I think you shouldn't be expecting the game to adapt and mold itself to you. I think you have to go into a game knowing and expecting different things. I think that it helped having you there, Pete, when I first started playing Civ, to kind of realise that about the game. And I think that like Bloodborne, I played it for about 3 hours and I'm not even out of the starting area. And the amount of times I've thrown the controller down and gone, this is unfair, this is horrible. But I have to remind myself that is the experience. Like, that is what the game is trying to teach me, and on what it is trying to provide is that you will get better. But there is nothing here that is going to help you do that. You've got to do it all on your own. You've got to put the time in, you've got to put the effort in. And there's something I quite like about those kind of games like Civ, like City Skylines, that it's frustrating, always having to go on forums, always having to talk, Pete, what does that do? What does this do? But once you find it out and then you go back into the game and then something clicks and you go, right, yeah, I'm on there now, that feeling is a lot more satisfying.
Yeah, definitely. And there's also something to be said about, I think it's finding a balance, right? Because in those games, in Civ 5, so that the things that I was teaching you guys, like, there's tons more that we could have talked about, but it was all about, okay, here's a foundation in this game. Like, here are the basics of how this game actually moves forward, and then you figure out the rest of the stuff on your own. And there's still stuff in Civ 5 that, you know, I'm still finding out now, and I've clocked in like 70, 80 hours now, which isn't that much, but there's still stuff I'm finding there. And it's funny you mention City Skylines, because I've literally just been playing that as well, and it's
so good.
It's so good. Because so I had my first city, and within half an hour I had to completely restart my game because I'd completely messed absolutely everything up. I was really frustrated, really annoyed, and I was sat there thinking to myself, like, this isn't SimCity. What I want is SimCity, because I know SimCity. I know that I do this, and I do this, and I do this, and then that happens, and that's great. And I was like really annoyed, but I was like, nope, I'm going to start again. I know what I did wrong last time. I'm going to try again. And in my second city, I played for a further 14 hours, and I got to Megalopolis, and that was the point where I decided okay, that's going to be my end goal, get to Megalopolis, which is like loads and loads of citizens. And the stuff I had to learn throughout that game, just having the foundations, the basics of, like, okay, this is a city management game, so you need to keep your citizens happy. That's a big thing. Taxes, you need to figure out your finances, how much you're actually charging these people. You need to figure out your zoning. Zoning seems to be this really big plate spinning balancing act. Okay, these are core areas. And then things like pollution, and other factors that then go in to determine whether or not citizens actually want to stick around your city, like health and fire safety and jobs and education and all these other areas. But having those foundational things really then just opened the game up, and then made me learn a whole bunch of stuff real quick. Like, for example, my city was built on
rock and roll.
It was it was, I mean, I built my city on a river, and so it was like, okay, so you need a source of water. Cool, okay. So I start this source of water, and I start my source of water just by the riverbank that's closest to me. I was like, yeah, cool. So I set it there, and started pumping water into the city. And I put down all my pipes because you've got to figure out where all the pipes go and all that sort of stuff. So everybody has good water coverage. That's all fine. And then the game was like, oh, of course, you'll also need to deal with sewage because your citizens will, they take that water in and they want to get rid of that water at some point as well. I was like, okay, brilliant. So I put my outlet just further upriver. And I just did not think,
literally a vicious circle.
Did not think about it. And then and I was sat there like, oh, why is everyone getting sick? Oh, I'll just build more hospitals. And then obviously,
God, no.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, they're all drinking piss water. Oh no. And so yeah, basically I'd pumped sewage out, and then just that was what they were having for their water. One of the other things I think that is, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently, is how there's often quite a lot said about everybody's got their own personal stopping point when it comes to video games specifically, in terms of politics and art, and the phrase that you hear a lot about is it's just video games, they don't matter, right? And they're not meant to say anything. There's a certain quarter of people that want to say, they don't say anything. Yeah, and games should just be games. I was like, okay, I can understand the reasoning behind that, and blah blah blah. But
it's impossible.
But it's impossible, and it so clearly presents itself in cities, right? Because it's not like a left wing, right wing thing, whatever. But it's more of a. I was making decisions in that game where I was thinking, well, what sort of mayor do I want to be? So right from the very start, I was like, I'm going to be green energy because I think
free Yorkshire puddings and toffee sauce for everyone.
Yeah.
Just no water pipes, just toffee sauce pipes.
No, that was the sewage, Kris.
But I was like green energy for everyone, right? And then later on down the line, I had very heavy industry at one point. It was being supported by green energy, but very, very heavy industry. And then on my little, it's called Chirper, I think it is. It's basically like a little Twitter feed, and you can essentially hear the thoughts and read the tweets of your citizens and what they're concerned about. And I was doing okay, so most of the time it was like, oh, we've got a great mayor, it's really great. But some people were like, why are we mining ore? This is really bad, it's really polluting, I'm digging up sludge from my back garden, this is awful. And for a decade, I just ignored it and just thought, no, we're digging ore because it's really useful and it makes us a load of money. And then at some point, I just went, this happens all the time, my citizens are so annoyed, we're going to transfer to a green industry instead. And then I got a load of flack from the mining community, and I lost a load of money. And then eventually, over the course of a couple of years, my industry changed into, I think it was forestry, which is a quote unquote green industry. And then a couple of years went by, and then a bunch of detractors were like, "Why are we chopping all the trees down?" And I guess the thing that rammed it home about you can't quite take politics out of games is, I made those decisions based on ethical thoughts, and also the game is about appeasing people. It is about appeasing the polis of saying we're going to go green, and a bunch of people go yay, and then the heavy industry people are like, this is real bad, and the citizens were unhappy because there were no jobs because I had to transform my complete industry from one thing to a completely different one, and it just really hammered it home, this idea of, even in something quite mechanical where it's about essentially balancing numbers, there is still a social element in these games where you put your own thinking about society into them.
And I don't think you would have learnt that lesson per se if it was an experience which held your hand at every step and said, right, this is what you do at this point. If they're unhappy, then you give them this.
Yep.
Same with Civ 5. It's just oh yeah, citizens. When we played Civ 5 and my citizens have been unhappy, it's a process then of, okay, what about my approach to the civilization do I sacrifice in order to try and, as you said, like appease them and make them happy. And I can't just go to a manual or a tutorial, or I can't just like press a button that says help me make people happy. I've got to figure out a way to do that based on everything I've learned from the previous civilizations or cities or run-throughs of Hollow Knight or run-throughs of Bloodborne that I've done in order to make that. And it's a frustrating experience, and I totally get where Dan's coming from, and I agree with him in a sense that the tutorials for Civilization, for Bloodborne, Hollow Knight, City Skylines, they could be done in they could still capture that atmosphere, but still be welcoming to players who maybe are not expecting that complete change in their approach to a game.
Well,
what?
Well, we have had another question from
oh my god
from our listeners. I know that is 3 in a row now. Can we make it 4? I don't know. If you want to make it 4, then stayinginpod@gmail.com is where you can email a question.
You'll notice if next time we sheepishly skip over the question section.
Oh,
well, no, we can just do what I used to do when I was a radio presenter and no one listened.
Yeah.
Just made up texts. Oh, John from Johntown says he'd really love to hear.
Did you actually do that? Did you actually make up texts?
Yeah, all the time.
What's your perfect Sunday?
Oh well, Sarah from Nesby Gardens just has a gin in a towel and watches Antiques Roadshow.
Brilliant.
Here's Mamma Mia.
That's incredible.
That's brilliant. Peering behind the curtain.
Do it all the time. All the time. Because callers beget callers, and the only way to get a question
is true.
Is to. So if you start hearing dodgy XCOM name, yeah, so we've got Bob Slay has texted into the Staying In podcast.
Okay, so yes, so real people can send real emails
please
and to us, stayinginpod@gmail.com. You can also do it on Twitter, DM us, or Facebook, DM us, I don't know what it's called over there. This is a real person, at Adamski_UK, long-time listener, I believe, and friend of the show.
Yeah, lovely guy.
Very nice.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
He sent us one on Twitter, and he says, question for you all. It's actually one of Richard Herring's emergency questions. That's a good subject to go on with here. If you could jump into a pool of something, what would it be? Keep up the excellent work, guys. Do what you love and love what you do. So if we could jump into a pool of something, what would it be? I always wanted to jump into a pool of money, like Scrooge McDuck did in DuckTales.
But his was loose change, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, but I realised as an adult, probably about 2 months ago, that there's in that sequence when he dives into the vault. Now, if you're not of, like, I don't know, a child of the 90s or whatever it is. Basically, DuckTales, Scrooge McDuck is a duck, and he has lots of money, but he's also a bit of a skinflint? Skinflint?
Yeah.
That one.
Thrifty.
Frugal. He has a vault, very large vault, and in it is a load of, like, looks like gold coins, and there's bars elsewhere in cash, sacks of cash and stuff like that. And in the credits, opening title sequences for DuckTales, he dives in his bathing costume, and then he dives into this pile of cash and then comes out and spits out coins, right? I realised about 2 or 3 months ago that those coins, there's so many of them, they must have been coming from his lungs. Like, he must have been like,
out of everything you could have questioned about that sequence.
Not the anthropomorphic duck.
Yeah, or using bathing shorts, or not questioning how pretty much everything other than water, when put into a place like a pool, will just become solid.
Yeah.
But to question the fact that he would have loose change in his lungs.
But think about that.
What
would you do to get rid of that?
Spit them all out,
Spit them all out. So I initially thought for the longest time, I wanted to dive into a big vault of money. But
I also like the fact that in Pete's mind, then, when he jumps into a pool of water, his lungs fill with water.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong.
Instantaneously.
I don't swim very often.
Just dives in like Tom Daly with his mouth wide open.
And then just goes...
And just the pool water just drops.
But who taught you swimming, Pete? Right, okay, you jump in, take a big deep breath, come to the surface and just...
So, well, all right. So, what else? What would you guys jump into?
I mean, the first thing I thought of, which
jelly.
No. The first thing I thought of, and it was the thing that you want to jump in and then get out relatively quickly, is a pool full of marshmallows. I feel like that would be a nice soft. Would be a nice soft thing to land in.
Probably bounce out though, wouldn't you? They're quite squidgy.
Yeah, exactly. They're squidgy, so you'd land. You'd want to get out fairly quickly because they're going to melt on you, so you'd end up getting...
What? How hot are you, Dan?
It's like the space shuttle when it comes out of orbit.
If I held a marshmallow in my hand...
Yeah.
It would not melt. Guarantee.
I guarantee if I held a marshmallow in my hand for 5 minutes and then opened my hand, it would have been stuck to my hand.
Dan's body heat is the same as a hot chocolate. Gee, what's wrong with you? Oh my God, I guarantee you. If you held a marshmallow in your hand, it would not melt.
I mean, Toby must be really disappointed, Dan, when you go and get him ice cream and he comes back and it's just like...
just a cone. It's like, you know what Dad's like, sorry.
Or just a stick.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting it turns to liquid. I'm suggesting it would get stuck to my hand because the outside of it would begin to melt against my skin.
Kris, what about yourself? What would you dive into?
Easy. Gin and tonic.
Ooh, stingy.
Tanqueray 10 Sevilla, to be exact. With a slice of orange.
It's very cold, very cold. That's a cold pool.
Kris, that's going to sting. That if you've got a cut somewhere, you're going to know about it.
Also, if you swallow, you're gonna accidentally swallow some of it, right?
You can't get over the
you're
fact.
obsessed.
No.
What's wrong with you?
No.
I'm not jumping from a diving board. I can just jump in from the side.
No, but I mean like regular, not going into the lungs or anything like that. But like you go into the swimming pool and sometimes you're taking a little bit of the water from the swimming pool, right? You go,
No.
Have you never done that before?
No. I don't go swimming and then need resuscitating afterwards. That's not normal.
No, but like not like into your lungs, but I mean like you swallow it a little bit, like it must be a little bit in your mouth. Does that never happen to you?
I'm sure it has happened, but it
very rarely, but only generally in the sea when the waves hit me in the face.
Well, what I'm saying is like you might absorb or swallow some of the gin and tonic. and
Pete's skin is made of sponge.
And if you do, you'll get like. You'll be like doing like front crawl, just becoming more melancholy, like all the way through, just like doing laps, but then like quite energetic to begin with, and then like on like lap 4, you'll be like, what's the point?
Pete, you told us what you didn't want in your lungs. What would you jump into a pool of? Because you told us that you didn't know. You no longer wanted to jump into a pool of money. So what would that get replaced by?
I think the safest thing at this point is he just jumps into a pool full of air.
Yeah,
because otherwise he's.
Yeah,
he just smacks on the ground.
No, just,
but then goes,
just like that scene in Thor Ragnarok. No, come on, Pete. What would you dive into?
Okay,
what would the pool be full of?
Yeah, because the money thing's not good. I think I'd dive into what's that stuff? You get them in their little. They look like tapioca balls, but like Lush sell them.
Right.
Those little not bath bombs, but the little squidgy, liquidy things.
Like a washing up tablet? Like a washing machine, liquid tabs?
They look a bit like that, but they're in like... you put them in like baths. They're like little squidgy balls of like nice smelling, scenty liquid.
Like bubble bath?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Like bubble bath in a pod?
Yeah, or just tapioca balls that you get in like one of those little... nice Japanese drinks that you can get.
I honestly thought Sam was going to say vinegar.
No.
Oh,
But I figured that's very similar to how the Joker was created.
What about chips covered in vinegar?
Ooh.
Hot chips. Well, actually, you could have them frozen, and Dan would just dive in and they'd automatically cook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Just cook them all on the spot. I think I'd like to dive
He just holds microchips in his hands and they're done.
I'd like to dive into a pool that's a normal pool, but it's filled with like those foam bricks that sit at the bottom, and underneath the foam bricks is like a picture of something, and I've just spent the next 2 or 3 hours diving down, pulling out a brick to see if I can reveal and find out what the picture is. It's some sort of...
Do you have to wear your pajamas for this?
Yeah.
Isn't that like that? What in America where you can give people as a gift a chocolate box with a photo underneath, and they reveal the photo as they eat the chocolates.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
That's what
nice.
I'd do. And I'd be like, oh, it's a picture of all of us at the bottom of the pool. Well, that was nice.
Yeah, but you know, sometimes when you're doing a jigsaw and you get halfway through and you go, oh, I know what this is, would you just carry on even though you know what the image is? Or would you go, yeah, I know what this is?
Yeah, I just go, yeah, I know what it is. I've got enough water on my lungs by that time, so I want to go out.
Did I ever tell you the time when my mother ordered 2 prawn cocktails?
Yes, you told me this, yeah.
So,
If the story is my mother ordered 2 prawn cocktails, it's a terrible story.
It's a pretty good story, though, because basically I went home to my family home in Kent, and they quite like eating... how should we put this nicely?
Food from the 80s.
Food from the 80s, basically. So you go out for like a pub dinner or whatever it is. That's kind of the thing you do in Kent, I guess. And basically, we went out for this pub dinner, and the serving person came over and she said, "What can I get you for starter?" My mother said, "I'll have a prawn cocktail, please." "Oh, okay, yeah, no problem at all. And what can I get you for your main?" "I'd like another prawn cocktail, but larger." And she said, and she literally, the serving person literally stood there, looked at me, like just red, like just looked at me, was like just looked at me for like guidance, and I went, I don't, and looked back to my mother and went, just larger, just a larger one, and she was like, yeah, we can do that, yeah, no problem. Half an hour later, you know, we're into our meal and stuff like that, and my mother's into her second prawn cocktail, and she literally turns round to the table and says, "I think I ordered too many prawns."
I thought it was going to come to the point where they said, "Desserts, anyone?" And your mum went,
Wow.
Do you know those sweets that are little pink prawns? Them with some mayonnaise.
That was Staying In with Peter Willington, Daniel Frost, Kris Darby and myself, Sam Turner. If you enjoyed this episode, then make sure to subscribe to our feed so you get the latest show as soon as it's released. Also, if you like what we make and you listen to us on something like Apple Podcasts, Stitcher or Castbox, then we'd really appreciate it if you left us a review, a comment, or make us one of your favourites. Information on all the things we've talked about on this episode is at stayingin.podbean.com, where there's also details of how you can get in touch with us if you've got a question for us to answer. And of course, there's links to our Steam Curator and Board Game Geek pages there, as well as our Twitter and Facebook details. But for now, thank you for listening.